This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good Erev Shabbos HaBoisai, as we prepare for Parshas Nitzavim, and we prepare for the Yom Hadin, Rosh Hashanah, Tafshin, Ayin Ches, Haba, Aleinu L'Taiva. Parshas Nitzavim, Perek Lamed, Pasuk Yud Aleph. Ki ha-mitzvah hazois, this mitzvah, Asher Anochi Mitzavacha Hayom, that I command you today, Lo nifleisi mimcha, it is not hidden from you, V'lo rechoikahi, it is not far. Lo b'shamayim hi, it is not in the heaven, Lamar, that you would say, Miyala lanu hashamayma, shall we go up to the heaven, V'yikacheha lanu, and take it, V'yashmienu oisa, and we can listen, V'na'asena. V'lo me'iver layam hi, it's not across the sea, Lamar, Miyavar lanu, Elevar hayam, V'yikacheha lanu, V'yashmienu oisa v'na'asena. Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'oid. It is close to you, very much. Beficha, in your mouth, uvelvavcha, and in your heart, la'asoisai, to do it. Mar v'raboisai, it says this mitzvah. The only problem is, we don't know which mitzvah this mitzvah is. But aside from that, whatever this mitzvah is, seems to be easy. It's ki karov elecha. It's close to you. And it's not a little bit close to you. It's very close to you. Wow, unbelievable. It's very close to you. This is the only mitzvah in the Torah that the Torah says is close to you. So whatever this mitzvah is, would seem then to be the easiest mitzvah in the Torah. So the Ramban says, V'tam ki ha-mitzvah hazois, it's going on the whole Torah. But more correctly, says Ramban, V'hanochain, ki al kol ha-Torah yoimar, regarding the Torah it says, Kol ha-mitzvah shanachim sam al-yom. Aval ha-mitzvah hazois, al ha-tshuva ha-nizkares. This mitzvah refers to tshuva. Why? Because in Pasuk Aleph it says, V'hashevoisa el levavecha, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha, Mitzvah sheyitzava oisanu la'asos kein. It's a mitzvah that Hashem commands us that we should do. So very interesting. This is the mitzvah of ki ha-mitzvah hazois refers to the mitzvah of tshuva. Now, the Ramban learns, it's very interesting because the Torah doesn't say you should do tshuva, but it uses a lashon, an in-between language. It uses a language you should, and it uses a language you will. And the reason is, says Ramban, the reason why it says a lashon beinoni is to be merames that it's a havtacha that yes, not only should you, but the day will come that Klal Yisrael will do tshuva. And the Baal HaTurim also seems to say that the mitzvah of tshuva, the mitzvah of ki ha-mitzvah hazois refers to tshuva. Says the Baal HaTurim, why is the mitzvah of tshuva called ki ha-mitzvah hazois? Loimar shkula hi ha-tshuva keneged kol ha-mitzvahs kulan. To indicate tshuva is equal to all the mitzvahs. So according to the Ramban, this refers to the mitzvah of tshuva. And the obvious question is, if it refers to the mitzvah of tshuva, if I would stop 1,000 people on the street corner and ask them which is the hardest mitzvah in the Torah, most people would say or should say tshuva. And the reason why it's so hard is because the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, in Perek Sheni, Halacha Beis, tells us what is tshuva. Number one, sheyazov hachoy techeta. You got to stop sinning. That's the hardest thing in the world. You tell a person, stop wasting your time every night. Make sure you're kovei itim l'Torah. Well, it's easy? It's not easy. It's hard. Guard your eyes. It's hard. Stop talking by davening. It's hard. Stop speaking lashon hara. It's hard. All these things. Stop taking your cell phone out by davening. People can't do it. They're addicted to it. They need therapy. They need medicine. I don't know what they need. Or they need just to cancel their phones. Whatever it is, people have issues. So we can tell, tshuva is a very hard mitzvah. So how could you say it's easy? You know what? If I was writing this thing, good thing I'm not, I would say, Ki rachoi keilecha hadovar ma'oid. Don't even bother. Forget it. Ki rachok elecha hadavar ma'od. Change. You know the story. The doctor comes into the room. He says, Becky, I have some bad news. Your husband had a really bad heart attack. But I'm confident that if he follows the following 3 pieces of advice, he's going to have a complete recovery. Number 1, he has to get moving, exercise every day 40 minutes. He has not just a walk, exercise, a little spazier around the block. No, he has to get moving, sweating, real exercise. Number 2, you Jewish women, you cook with so much schmaltz and salt. Let up, no salt, no fat, no taste, bland food. And finally, number 3, he has to chill out. He's so stressed out about everything, about the stocks, about the parnasa, about the food, about the exercise. He has to relax. But I am confident that if he follows these 3 pieces of advice, everything will be fine. So Becky comes back into the hospital room, and Harvey says, "What did the doctor say?" And Becky says, "Harvey, you're a dead man." So we know change is very hard. If anything, it should say, Ki rachok elecha hadavar ma'od. No. The Torah says, Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od. By the way, that's just one ingredient of tshuva. Then the Rambam says, what else do you have to do? Accept upon yourself never to do it again. Now the truth is, if you stop doing the sin, once you've stopped the sin, legitimately, let's say you go a year without sinning, then it's not so hard to accept never to do it again. Then the Rambam says, what else do you have to do? Regret. Regret? I stole $10,000. I don't regret it. It's coming very handy right now. Right? The Averos. Person did a big Avera. It's actually a pretty geschmack. That's pretty geschmack. We regret. And then, Vidoy. Vidoy is easy. Tell me what I need to say. You know? Tell me you're right, it gets a little tiring, the hands get a little tired. But it's not ma'akev. Going like that is not ma'akev. Even if you don't go like that, it's still vidoy. So, truth is, there's certain parts of tshuva, stopping to sin is hard, regret is hard, but accepting upon yourself not to do it again, and the vidoy, that's the easy part. But still, tshuva is very hard. Why would the Torah, of all the mitzvahs in the Torah, to say is very easy, the Torah picked the hardest mitzvah? And what's also interesting is, I'm going to tell you another chiddush. The Rambam Shita is, there's no mitzvah to do tshuva. Okay? So that's also a good one. Where does the Rambam say there's no mitzvah to do tshuva? Look in number 6. The Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, amazing. Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph. The Rambam in the first halacha of Hilchos Tshuva says, don't do tshuva. Yeah, it's a good thing you came today. The Rambam says, Kol ha-mitzvah shebatayra, bein asa, bein lois, bein aseh, bein lois aseh, im avar adam al achas mehen, bein bezadoin, bein bishkaga, kishayasa tshuva, if you do the tshuva, v'yashem echetoi, chayiv lehisvadois, you have to say vidoy. You hear the lashon of the Rambam?
I don't get it.
The Rambam says, when you do tshuva, you're chayiv to say vidoy. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing I'm not chayiv to do tshuva. It's only if I do it, so better if I won't do it. Because when I do it, I have to say vidoy. But the Rambam is clearly mashma. I'm not chayiv to do tshuva. You hear? Mr. Harmons, you hear why? Because the Rambam says, when you do tshuva, you have to say vidoy.
What's the problem? I don't see the problem.
You're good with that, right? Okay, I'm just clarifying that the Rambam seems to hold you don't have to do tshuva. Because he says, when you do tshuva, meaning like, let's say I tell you,
because tshuva is not really a chov. You have to want to do it.
What do you mean?
If you don't want to do it, you know.
Sure, I mean tefillin and tefillin.
The consequences.
Tefillin is I don't have to. I also don't have to do.
Chov, right? It says in the Torah.
Why does it?
Where does it say in the Torah that you must do tshuva?
I mean, the Ramban learns it's ki ha-mitzvah hazois refers to the mitzvah of tshuva. So how does the Rambam read the pasuk ki ha-mitzvah? The Rambam has a very interesting interpretation. That the Rambam doesn't say you're chayiv to do tshuva. When you do tshuva, you're chayiv to be mizvada l'fnei Hashem. Shenemar isha ki yasim kachad zazon l'mal ma b'Hashem v'oshma nebeshi v'izvadu es chatasam.
What if, to the best of your knowledge, you never committed a sin?
I know, people like us, we don't have to worry about these things, you know. We don't have to worry about tshuva. So, but there are people that I heard, and in other states or countries, that they do averos. I mean, what if you never sinned? Avada, you don't have, I mean...
Your knowledge. You're not the status club. You're not the club.
if let's say Yishai never did an Aveira, so did Yishai have to do Teshuva? I guess he's pater. Should you do an Aveira just to be Yotzei the mitzvah of Teshuva? Ha'omer echta v'ashav. Doesn't work. Anyway, Rabbi say, the Minchas Chinuch makes this diuk that according to the Rambam, there's no mitzvah in the Torah to do Teshuva. In fact, the Rambam holds that let's say a person does an Aveira and he doesn't do Teshuva, he's not over an Isser. It's just, if you do Teshuva, you better say Vidoy. The Ramban, as we mentioned, learned that it's one of the 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. V'shavta ad Hashem leikecha. The Rabbi Tzalel Zolti in the Mishnah Yavitz, this is brought down at number 7 of the Minchas Chen. It's Rabbi Olbaum's commentary to the Rambam in Hilchas Teshuva. He points out that the Mishnah Yavitz holds that the reason why, according to the Rambam, there's no mitzvah to do Teshuva, because the Rambam reads the psukim the way the Ramban alludes to, that the mitzvah v'shavta ad Hashem leikecha is not a command to do Teshuva, but it's rather a guarantee that in the end of days, Klal Yisrael will do tshuva. It's not a tzivoy, it's a haftacha. And in fact, the Rambam, Perek Zayin Hilchos Tshuva, says, Kol hanavim kulan tzivu ala tshuva. Ve'ein Yisrael nigolan ela b'tshuva. Ukvar hiftichu Torah shesav Yisrael lasos tshuva. Umiyad he nigolan. Shenemar v'hoya ki avoyu alecha kol advarim. V'shavta ad Hashem leikecha. One time in my sleep I realized that the reason why in the davening of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, why we talk about the Geula, you know, V'sein pachtacha Hashem l'kal masecha, V'simach Hashem l'vadecha masecha. I thought these are the Yom Tovim of Teshuva. There's nothing about Teshuva, it's all about Geula. It could be, according to the Rambam, the purpose of doing Teshuva is Haftacha she'soif Yisrael lasos Teshuva, Umiyad he negalin, and then the Geula will come. So basically we cut to the chase. We talk about it, bring the Geula, meaning, hint, make sure we do Teshuva, this way the Geula could come already. Okay, but in any event, we have a few questions over here. Very interesting, very difficult in a way, that the Rambam holds there's no mitzvah to do Teshuva. No mitzvah to do Teshuva. So what, if you do an Aveira, you don't have to repair it? And also, why would the Torah say that the easiest mitzvah in the Torah is Teshuva? It's the hardest mitzvah in the Torah. Yeah, does everyone feel that question? You feel that question in your bones? Why would the Torah say that it is so close to you? I don't know, maybe we should change it. So let's get very clear. The Sefer, today's Shiur comes from the Heilige Sefer, Koich Ve'ar of Rav Itzla Petterberg, who lived from 1837 to 1907. At the age of 25, he was the Rav of St. Petersburg, one of the Talmidei Mufhakim of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. He was nifter on Rosh Chodesh Adar, Taf Kuf Tzadi Zayin. He was a real anav. You know why he was a real anav? They say, because he didn't know he was an anav. If you know you're an anav, then you're not an anav. He didn't know he was an anav. Anyway, he brings down in the Koich Ve'ar in the Maimer Vav that if you look in the Reishis Chachma of Rabbi Eliyahu Dividas in Parak Aleph, he quotes the Ramban that Ki HaMitzvah Hazois refers to Teshuva. Well, if Ki HaMitzvah Hazois refers to Teshuva, then we'll read the pasuk. Ki Karov Elecha Hadavar Ma'oid. Listen carefully. Beficha Uvuvavcha. Beficha is which part of Teshuva? Vidoy. Vidoy. Beficha, in your mouth. Vidoy, right? Uvuvavcha is Kabbalah al Ha'asid and Azivas Hachet. So what's very interesting is we know there are 4 components of Teshuva. Stopping to sin, accepting not to do it again, regret, and vidoy. So you could say like this. Rabbeinu Yonah tells us, when it says, Umoide v'oizav Yerucham, one who does vidoy, and he leaves the sin will be atoned. Well, what happened to charata? Vidoy is just the oral expression of charata. Okay? And aziva goes with Kabbalah ala Asid. So umoide, someone who says vidoy, which includes charata. V'oizev, someone does azivas aches, which includes Kabbalah Asid, Yerucham will be atoned for. Here too also, beficha is the vidoy, but we'll include charata because charata is part of vidoy. Uvelvavcha, your heart, that's Kabbalah ala asid, but that's a product of azivas hachet. So, kikabela beficha vidoy and charata. Uvelvavcha Kabbalah ala asid with aziva la'asoisai. Isn't it interesting, Rabbi Isai, that the components of tshuva, which are sort of secondary, are enunciated in the pasuk, and the ones that are primary are not enunciated in the pasuk? In other words, I would ask you, what are the real components of tshuva? What's the engine of tshuva? Stop sinning and feel bad about what you did. Accepting that you'll never do it again is sort of goes. Of course, you'll accept. Once you're not doing it again, you're going to commit not to do it again. And of course, if you really feel bad, you're going to confess. Why would the Torah write the secondary parts of tshuva, and sort of, it's implicit, the primary parts of tshuva? Why would the Torah say outright, explicitly, beficha vidoy, uvelvavcha kabbalah asid, which are only sort of exterior to tshuva, and omit the real heart and soul of tshuva, which is charata and azivas hachet? So that's question number one. Question number one, tzarech tam, says Rav Itzala. Mazeh shapirid hakasav havidoy v'hakabala v'loy ha'ikar, which is charata, and not the ikar, which is azivas hachet. Also, Rav Itzala asked the question we asked. Tshuva is very hard. You want to say, gedilim taselacha al dar kenafcha, put on tzitzis, kikar ve'lecha dar ma'od. Tzitzis is easy. Sit in the sukkah, kikar ve'lecha. But why pick the hardest mitzvah in the Torah and say kikar ve'lecha davar ma'od? Says Rav Itzala Petterberg, the truth is, when the Torah says it's very easy, it's really only talking about the exterior of tshuva. The vidoy, beficha, and the leiv, the kabbalah asid. Because those things are a piece of cake once you do the real heart and soul of tshuva. But we're talking about tshuva in general. Why would it say tshuva in general is easy if the heart and soul of tshuva is very hard? And the answer, says Rav Itzala, is tshuva is very easy. But azivas hachet is very hard, and charata is very hard. Says Rav Itzala, they have absolutely nothing to do with tshuva. Let me explain something to you. Imagine a guy. He has an asayan. He likes to look at his phone during Chazar Sashatz. So he takes it out during Chazar Sashatz. You say, pal, the Chazar Sashatz is a very important part of tefillah. Don't distract yourself. Focus on what's going on. So let's say there was no such thing as tshuva. And let's say a person can never rectify their misdeeds of the past. Let's say Hashem would never be mechaper and avera. So does this person have to stop sinning? Of course he has to stop sinning, because every time he sins, he's incurring punishment. So you have to do azivas hachet, even if there was no such thing as tshuva, you would still have to do azivas hachet. Why? Because the lav in the Torah tells you, yes, you did it in the past, but don't do it again. Let's say you're somebody who's a rampant Lashon Hara speaker. And let's say there is no way to get off your past averos. So you say, why do I have to do azivas hachet? I can't. There's no such thing as tshuva. The reason why you have to do azivas hachet is because the Torah says, "Lo yiselech rachel be'amecha." Yeah, but I did it in the past. Yeah, but the lav, as far as I know, just because you violated in the past, it has not been erased from the Torah. So the lav itself says, stop, don't do it, and if you did it, don't do it again, and if you did it again, don't do it again. So azivas hachet has nothing to do with tshuva. You have to stop sinning regardless of whether there's a mitzvah of tshuva or not. It has nothing to do with the mitzvah of tshuva. Even if the Rebbeinu Shalom would never atone for sin, you would still have to do azivas hachet. Look in Rav Itzala, in the second column, in the fourth paragraph. V'nei shnei ikrei tshuva, dahainu acharata, v'azivas hachet, ein zeh davar kal. It's not easy. Ki tichvad ho'avoida lichbosh es yitzra. It's very hard to overcome the yitzhar hara. Lazov darkei hara. But the two added things, vidoy and kabbalah, they are very easy. But that still doesn't answer the question, because in order to do tshuva, you need, what do you need? You need azivas hachet and charata. Omnom kasher naskel v'nesboinein bina However, if we look into the matter and we contemplate, Nimtza ki la'olam hatshuva hu davar kal ma'od. Tshuva is very easy. Ki gam shnei ikrei hatshuva. Even the two principles of tshuva, azivas hached and charata, lo nechshav klal ledavar kaved hatshuva. They're not difficulties of tshuva. Yan ki en liazon klal because they have nothing to do with tshuva. Asher yisod hi hamachil chatam lavsham. What's tshuva? Atonement. You don't need to stop sinning to get atonement from previous sin. You need to stop sinning because you're not allowed to do the Avera again. Ki azivas hached ein ze inyan asher nimshach mikach midas hatshuva. Azivas hached has nothing to do with tshuva. Azivas hached has nothing to do with the gift of tshuva. Even if there was no gift of tshuva, you would still have to not sin again. And even though the Navi tells us, Yazay Rasha Darkai, V'yish Avain Machshavoisa, V'yashav Hashem V'yirachameo, V'yalo Ekenu Ki Yarbe L'Slayach, even if Hashem would not be Yarbe L'Slayach, we would still have to be Oizev Es Chatenu. Would we, I have a question, if there was no such thing as tshuva, would you be allowed to sin again? No. So technically, Azivas Hachet has nothing to do with tshuva. You would have to do Azivas Hachet, even if there's no such thing as tshuva. How will you do it's known ki al kol chet v'aven ye'ana sha'adam. Right, there was once a big roitzeach mushchos, and he about to eat food, and the Gra said, "Make sure you make a bracha." So the guy said, "Come on, make sure you make a bracha. I have bigger things to worry about." The Gra says, "Yeah, but you got to worry about this also." So too, even if a person sinned 1,000,000 times, you can't do it the 1,000,001th time, even if there's no such thing as tshuva. Yeah.
He said it's too late. Then Vasco came out. I cannot do true. So there's a point somebody feel the sin. If it's no more, if it's a short of capital punishment.
So you know
there's a point that you feel you.
There's a beautiful shla. The shla says over there. He heard the Baskal. Shuvu vanim shavavim chutz me'acher. So the shla says, Chazal tells him, Sachim kamash amar chabal abayis asay chutz mitzay. Whatever the host tells you to do, listen, unless he tells you to say. Says the shla, who's the balabayas? Rebbeinu Shalom. Whatever he tells you, listen, unless he tells you get out of here, get lost, you can't do tshuva. If he tells you get lost, you can't do tshuva, you don't have to listen to him. He's just bluffing. So the shla says, Acher should have realized, Rebbeinu Shalom never tells somebody, say, he just meant, I'm not going to give you the same siyata d'shmaya. So Rebbeinu Shalom is not even mevater on one chet. So it comes out, even if there was no such thing as a midas hatshuva, without mechila, you would still have to do azivas hached. And likewise, charata. Question. Let's say a person had $100,000, and he made a bad investment. He invested it with Saddam Hussein, right? And, and he goes, I didn't realize, we would come in and knock the living daylights out of the guy, and, he lost all his money. So we tell the guy, Rabbi, it's a very big mitzvah for you to have charata about your investment. Say, what? You shaita shabba'ilam. You need to tell me it's a mitzvah for me to feel bad that I blew $100,000? I don't need your mitzvahs. I get it. That's under control. I don't need it to be a mitzvah to have charata about my bad investment. Says the Rabbi Tzala, you think charata is only because there's a special gift of tshuva, and if a person would not have an opportunity to wipe away his averos, then there's no concept of charata? What is charata? He quotes Rabbeinu Yoina, the first ikar of tshuva, Yavin levavai. Person should understand, Kira v'amar ozvayas Hashem. It's bad and bitter to leave Hashem. V'yashav alibai. You should place to your heart that there's punishment and revenge and recompense for sins. And you say to yourself, what did I do? How could I not have been afraid for the punishment for Averos? Question. If there was no such thing as tshuva, then you say, I'm not going to feel bad because I can't wipe it away. No, you still did something really stupid. The fact that you sinned is still a major blow. You blew it. So charata has nothing to do with tshuva. Even if there's no such thing as tshuva, you would have to stop sinning and regret your sin. So what added onus does tshuva place on us? That once you're regretting it, just say it. And once you're stopping sin, commit you won't do it again. Once I'm doing the engine, the heart and soul of tshuva, which I have to do anyway, I have to stop anyway, and I regret anyway, so the added onus of tshuva is actually a piece of cake. It's the easiest mitzvah in the Torah. So what do you mean, but the heart and soul of tshuva? The heart and soul of tshuva has nothing to do with tshuva. Heart and soul of tshuva you have to do, even if there's no such thing as tshuva. What the only additions of tshuva are beficha, vidoy, uvelvavcha, kabbalah al-asr. Says Rabbi Tzla, advarim habam rak mikol achat tshuva. Hein, heima shnei pratei tshuva. These are the two details of tshuva. Hamisyachsim el acharat v'azivas achet, which are connected to charat and aziva, which is kabbalah al-asr, and vidoy are actually very, very easy. So look in the paragraph on the, turn over your sheets in the right-hand column. Umikol hanizkar la'el, from the above mentioned, nimsa comes out, ki etzem hatshuva hu davar kal ma'oid. The actual tshuva is very easy. Ki hine shnei ikrei hatshuva, the two principles of tshuva, shel aziva sached v'acharata, ki amnam ki hu davar kash, even though they are hard, lichvoy shas yisrav alazav estarka, to conquer yes and to leave your way, ulam haloi zeh einoi inyan davka mikach yisrael hatshuva. They are not specifically connected to tshuva. Even if there's no such thing as tshuva, you would have to stop sinning anyway. So charata you would do anyway. So you cannot call tshuva hard, because the parts of tshuva that you do anyway, they are hard. But since you have to do it anyway, the only additional factors and ingredients are actually very, very easy. Achein, bottom paragraph, Shnei Pratei HaTshuva, the two details of Tshuva, Hamisyachsim L'charat V'azivas Achet, which are Vidoy and Kabbalah, which are only coming for Tshuva, Ulam Hinei Hinam Kalam Be'emes. They are very, very easy. Ki acharei she'achoyta yomuchach lavaz v'eschatay, once you have to stop sinning, and once you have to regret, then it's quite easy to be makabel, not to do it again, and to say vidoy. That's why in the Torah only specifies the externalities of tshuva. Beficha vidoy, uvelvavcha and kabbalah. What happened to azivas achet? You got to do that anyway. What happened to charata? You do that anyway. So what you do anyway are taka hard, and what the mitzvah of tshuva places on you is actually very, very easy. Look in the second to last paragraph. What emerges is we could understand that we have to arouse ourselves to return to Hashem. When a person contemplates the reward and punishment, it is awesome. The human mind is too short, too small, to plummet their depth. It will become clear, stopping to sin has nothing to do with tshuva. Whether God forgives you or doesn't forgive you, you still got to stop. But once you stop, then Hashem gave you such a gift, and an easy gift, of Kabbalah ala Asid and Vidoy. Marv Rabbi Sai comes to Meshech Chachma, and the Meshech Chachma says something very, very interesting. Meshech Chachma says a revolutionary pshat for the Rambam. We pointed out the Rambam seems to say tshuva is not a mitzvah, but just when you do tshuva, you better say Vidoy. Comes the Rambam, and according to the Meshech Chachma, the Rambam is saying, why is tshuva not a mitzvah? So are you kidding me? Give a mitzvah to do tshuva? Hashem, of course. The Torah wrote, don't wear shatnez. When the Torah said don't wear shatnez, means don't put it on. And if you did put it on, you better not put it on again. So the mitzvah itself tells you, stop. I don't need a separate mitzvah to do tshuva. The mitzvah, the first mitzvah told you. The mitzvah itself is saying, don't do it, and if you did it, don't do it again. I need another mitzvah? The mitzvah itself is the mitzvah of tshuva. If I did it, I'm not allowed to do it again. Only the Rambam holds when you do tshuva. You say, oh, I don't have to do tshuva. Of course you have to do tshuva. Who says I have to do tshuva? The 613 mitzvahs are saying, don't violate me, and if you did, don't violate me again. They are perforce saying to do tshuva. It's just the Rambam is saying, when you do it, just throw in a vidui. Maybe you could add, why didn't the Rambam say you should throw in Kabbalah ala Asad as well? Unless that's part of leaving it. Part of not doing it is making sure you really firmly commit not to do it again. It says in Meshech Chachma, V'nizboinen, let us contemplate, the Shem Tshuva, the name of Tshuva, K'fima Shemoira Shema, as its name implies, Eich nechsheves l'mitzvah. How could it be considered a mitzvah? Sheyashav mikislai, that we return from our slipping, v'lo yachta oid. Haloi below mitzvah, even without the mitzvah. Mitzuva v'oimed, you're commanded, livli lavar, mitzvah Hashem yisbarach, not to violate the mitzvah. I need a mitzvah of tshuva to tell me don't wear shatnez again. How about the mitzvah of don't wear shatnez? Isn't that enough to say don't wear shatnez again? V'chi b'shvil sha'avar b'shanaba, just because a person violated and repeated it, you think now it's mutter? The first warning that prevents you from sinning, terem shachata, before you sinned, prevents you from sinning afterwards. And that's what the Rambam writes explicitly in the Mishnah Nazar, that if somebody drank a lot of wine, so al tishta, you can't drink again. So what does tshuva add? Amla mitzvah satshuva, ashal zetzach mitzvah pratis. The specific mitzvah of tshuva has nothing to do with stopping to sin. It is she'im chata, if you sin v'oize v'schatoi, mitzvah lehizvadois. It's a mitzvah to say vidui ulahagil lefnei Hashem yisbarach, and to tell Hashem ki yodeya ba'atzmai shechata, that you know that you sinned, umavakesh kapara. And likewise is the lashon of the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. Kishayasa tshuva v'yashiv mechetoi chayiv lehisvadois lefnei Hashem. Uma shetzach shebeshazu yachshoiv shelo yashiv lekis lo yavra oid mitzvahs Hashem hu bechlal vidoi. Very interesting. Sort of Rabbeinu, the Meshech Chacham is bavarning what I asked. Well, why wouldn't the Rambam say that when you do tshuva, say vidui and be makabel not to do it again? Isn't Kabbalah Asad part of tshuva? Isn't Kabbalah ala Asad also a component? Yeah, that's included, says the Meshech Chachma. While you're saying the vidui, it can't just be, I sinned and I'm going to sin again. Bagadnu, v'yivgoido. No, it has to be, I sinned, I'm not going to do it anymore. Aval ala tshuva ba'atzma, tshuva itself, ein lechashva l'mitzvah chadasha. So very interesting. According to the Rambam, tshuva is not even a mitzvah. And according to the Ramban, yes, tshuva is a mitzvah. There is a separate mitzvah to stop. But it could be considered easy. So the truth is it easy to do tshuva? It's not easy to do tshuva. Because in order to do tshuva, you need to stop. But you have to stop anyway. And since you have to stop anyway, the mitzvah of tshuva is easy. Because the additional components of tshuva are easy to do once the meat and potatoes have already been accomplished. So we hope we should have siyata d'shmaya to be able to do a tshuva shlema. After all, according to the Rambam, the Torah is maftiach lanu that Klal Yisrael will do tshuva, and Yivon Shalom should be mechazik us. Rabbeinu Yonah writes in the beginning of the Shari Tshuva that if a person puts their best effort and puts their best foot forward, what does it say in the beginning of this week's Parsha? Umal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha v'es levav zarecha. Hashem is going to circumcise our heart. So the question is, what is that referring to? I don't know if it's most people consider a bracha to have open heart surgery. What is the Umal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha v'es levav zarecha? The answer, yes, Rabbeinu Yonah says that Elo, right, is Rosh Tevos, Umal Hashem es levavcha v'es levav zarecha. That what the heart is limited in its capacity to feel the love for Hashem and return to Hashem, Hashem will give tremendous siyata d'shmaya. So we hope and pray for siyata d'shmaya. Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'nashuva. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.